Everything happening with the Jeffrey Epstein case gets more and more unfathomable by the day. It's like the plot to Moonfall, how it just continuously gets more insane as it goes. We are now looking at the possibility that Ghislaine Maxwell might potentially receive a pardon of some kind. You know, the co-conspirator to Jeffrey Epstein, the most notorious sex trafficker, pedophile in the world, his partner, by the way, the only person to ever face any repercussions for their involvement in Epstein's crimes, is potentially looking at a pardon. Is that not the most sickening thing you could possibly imagine? So what's happening now is this administration has fully kegeled the orb of confusion, and they've completely stopped pretending to give even the slightest fuck about the Epstein files. They're not even dropping morsels of information regarding that anymore. Instead, they've shifted their focus to Ghislaine Maxwell, whom is somehow drumming up quite a bit of support from chunks of the MAGA team, Squad MAGA. There are people unironically cheering for Ghislaine Maxwell as if she's some kind of fucking hero right now. She is a child sex trafficker. What is happening to the world? But now, since the administration has completely given up on ever releasing the Epstein files, it seems, they are talking with her and dangling a potential pardon and recently this limited immunity in her face. Which, if you have your thinking caps on, if your IQ is, above 60, you should be able to recognize how manipulative this is. Why would you not release the Epstein files? You have them. Well, actually, if you follow the storyline, if you follow the lore from all of the seasons of this anime, first, there were no Epstein files, there was no blackmail, it was just Epstein, there were no, extensive list of clients that were implicated in his crimes or anything. Then all of a sudden, no, there actually is a list, but it was all made up by the Democrats. It was a Democrat hoax, orchestrated by Obama and crooked Hillary and all of that. And now all of a sudden, we gotta go talk to Ghislaine Maxwell to get that list. As of now, she's allegedly been asked about 100 different names, but I can't get into the spaghetti and the meatballs of it because none of it's being done publicly. All of that is happening behind closed doors for some weird reason. But if those names are people implicated in Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, they need to face justice, and the question needs to be asked, are they even going to be prosecuted at this point? Because it's been years and still nothing is happening. The files are still not coming out, but now for some reason the focus has shifted away from the files to now talking to Ghislaine Maxwell to get a list of people, which I find to be very peculiar. To me, what this seems like is whatever list they have, they can't scrub the names off it that they'd like to, so thus they just, that hot potato is never coming out. So instead, they're going to shift focus to Ghislaine Maxwell, who is someone they can have, absolve those they want absolved. Because if there is a pardon on the table, you bet your sweet Bippy she will motorboat whoever's tits are required there in order to get that. She's not going to implicate people that don't want to be implicated if it could cost her that pardon. It's very clear she will give the names that are going to be the names they want released and omit the ones that they don't want out into the public. It just, to any sensible human being, this should be a huge red flag. You have all of this evidence, all of these Epstein files. You are not releasing them. Instead, now you are going to Ghislaine Maxwell to give names. And you are meeting with her privately. None of this is being done publicly, by the way. They're meeting with her privately.
Are we really about to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? That's the story we're going to go over today. Look, we know that Bill Clinton knew Ghislaine Maxwell. We know Trump knew her as well. We know he wished her well, but previously this was unthinkable, as she is literally the only person, the only co-conspirator who's ever faced any consequences for the abuse that Epstein did.
Now, right off the bat, I've seen a lot of shift in the focus here to Bill Clinton, about Bill Clinton's involvement with Epstein and all of the children. Yeah, I have no doubt Bill Clinton not only went to the island numerous times, that dude was probably there doing unspeakable crimes so frequently he probably had his own fucking suite built there. I have no doubt about that. Lock him up. And everyone else associated with this. I don't know why there are some people that are using that as a smoking gun, look at this hypocrisy. You'll call out, Trump for his handling of this, but what about Bill Clinton? Bill Clinton's going to be in those files. You okay with that? Yes, you Sharpie huffing, paint chip eating goobers Who the fuck is going to be shedding tears over Bill Clinton being thrown in the slammer? I don't know too many Bill Clinton enthusiasts on this planet. Like, maybe I just don't see it. Like, how many Bill Clinton fans are out there with their Bill Clinton cologne and their Bill Clinton phone and their Bill Clinton crypto coin wearing their Bill Clinton shirt? Like, it doesn't exist. Anyone associated with these crimes needs to be held accountable and thrown in jail no matter what party they're affiliated with. I don't know why all of a sudden Bill Clinton's being brought up like it's some kind of monkey wrench in all of this.
She was sentenced to 20 years in prison and was charged, among other things, for perjury, aka lying, although she was never ultimately tried for it because they went after the heavier counts. However, Maxwell is appealing her conviction, and her lawyer has been pushing to get this in front of Donald Trump. This is a quote from her lawyer, quote, "I'd be surprised if President Trump knew his lawyers were asking the Supreme Court to let the government break a deal. He's the ultimate deal maker. I'm sure he'd agree that when the United States gives its word, it should keep it." Of course, referring to the non-prosecution agreement that Epstein had with prosecutors back in 2007. This all came to a head today when Trump was asked if he would consider pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell, and he wouldn't rule it out.
Would you consider a pardon or a commutation for Ghislaine Maxwell if
it's something I haven't thought about. It's really something. I'm allowed to do it, but it's something I have not thought about.
But you wouldn't rule it out.
I love the way CoffeeZilla covers things. His coverage of this is extraordinary. All of this is such important information. So Ghislaine Maxwell, she did have perjury charges. Shocker. I hope you're sitting down for this, but it turns out a child sex trafficker is also a liar. It turns out they don't always tell the truth. So she does already have a history of lying. So you're now going to her to get these names while dangling a potential pardon in front of her. Yeah, I'm sure we can really trust everything she says in regards to this now. Wake the fuck up, drooling idiots. Obviously, Ghislaine is not going to say names that could jeopardize her chance at that pardon. So if there are names that, the administration doesn't really want out there, Ghislaine's not going to give it to them. She is going to omit those, so that way she can increase her odds of getting that pardon. She's not going to try and anger them by giving all of these names. And she's already made it clear she has no problem with lying in general. So it's a completely untrustworthy person to go and get this list of people, which the administration had already said didn't exist like 2 weeks ago. It's so fascinating how this whole thing is playing out here. Just release the fucking files. Just release the files. That is the way to prove that you are innocent, that you did no wrongdoing. You know what makes you look like you did tons of wrongdoing? Continuously refusing to release the files, trying to downplay the severity of those files, saying that people are bad people if they care about Epstein and everything that happened there. That's what makes you look a lot worse. If you haven't done anything, the files should have been the first thing that he released, which was one of his promises, that he would release those Epstein files, which he still hasn't delivered on, and doesn't seem to have any desire to. It's just absurd, and people are gobbling this shit up. When he's directly asked, if he would, pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, all he says is, I haven't thought about it, but I am allowed to do it. That seems to leave the door wide open to a pardon to a fucking child sex trafficker. That is insane. That is absolute lunacy. He didn't just say no or anything. He didn't even tiptoe around anything even resembling no. He just completely opened the door I can do it. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
His deputy attorney general is meeting privately with Maxwell. Of course, everybody was okay with the idea of her testifying in public in front of Congress, but that's not exactly what happened. Instead, what Todd Blanche did was privately meet with her in a meeting that nobody was allowed to see. And he said in a statement, "Today I met with Ghislaine Maxwell and I'll continue my interview of her tomorrow. The Department of Justice will share additional information about what we learned at the appropriate time." Of course, that's brought to you by the same people who said they'd release additional credible evidence. So we don't exactly know what that means.
Exactly as CoffeeZilla described, Ghislaine Maxwell testifying publicly in front of Congress is so much different than privately being interviewed by the DOJ here. If this was all public, where she was disclosing these names and having these conversations, it would be so different. But it is behind closed doors, and nobody gets access to any information that they discuss. That's a little fishy. That smells a little stinky.
And When Maxwell returned to prison, she returned with a white box of materials, which a lot of people, myself included, found very strange because she left with nothing. We also have to note that Todd Blanche was Trump's personal lawyer, so some people are calling it a conflict of interest. Even though he is no longer the personal lawyer, he is now the deputy attorney general.
Well, now, isn't that the damnedest thing? What a fascinating coinkydink. Trump's personal lawyer, who is now with the DOJ, is the one spearheading these interviews with Maxwell privately. The only person that could potentially omit Trump's name in relation to Jeffrey Epstein if his name is implicated in there? What are the odds of that, huh? And I imagine that box of materials that she returned with was nothing of concern. I'm sure that was it was a box of Labubu, probably. They gave her a bunch of blind boxes so she'd be able to entertain herself by opening some awesome Labubu or something. I bet there was nothing important in that box that she somehow mysteriously returned with.
Now, Ghislaine's lawyer gave some statements on the matter. He claimed that she answered all questions truthfully during her DOJ interview and now says she is seeking a pardon, though she says she hasn't approached Trump about it directly, but that they hope a pardon is in the works.
We haven't spoken to the president or anybody about a pardon just yet. And listen, the president this morning said he had the power to do so. We hope he exercises that power in the right and just way.
I love that statement. She answered all questions truthfully. Yeah, that holds a lot of water. As if the lawyer's going to come out and say, well, actually, she lied about a few things, but overall, she did say, mostly accurate things. Obviously, he's going to say that she answered truthfully. There's no way of knowing if she did or not. It's all fucking private in the first place, but she does have a history of lying. She did have perjury charges that weren't pursued, but they were present. It is crazy to see this unfold, and how he is now saying, we hope that he'll do the right thing and use that power to pardon for justice here, and pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, one of the most fucking infamous child sex trafficking co-conspirators of all time. It seems like people are forgetting she herself participated in the trafficking of these children, calling them her slaves and shit. What the fuck is going on here that this is even something that's a possibility? It is so sick and twisted, and it's unfolding right in front of people's faces.
In fact, there are already rumors coming out from some sources at ABC News that Ghislaine Maxwell may have already been granted a limited form of immunity to testify in the first place, presumably only for the new information that she's talking about. But still, it does seem like a pardon for Ghislaine Maxwell is very much on the table, very much possible, and it's sick to imagine that the one person who's ever faced any consequences for the most notorious trafficker of all time might get away with it.
It is completely deplorable. And that is what's been happening for years, with everyone involved in the Epstein crimes getting away with it. Except Ghislaine, she did face some punishment, but it looks like there is a chance that it might be overturned here, possibly. And the fact that it's even a possibility is horrifying. That is terrible. Now, as I said earlier, the names she gives, I would love to know if there will ever even be anything that comes from it. The names that she does provide and whatever evidence she also provides, are they even going to act on it? And I don't know the answer to it, because I think there is a very likely scenario where she only provides names, a curated list of names, where she will give them, and then they might pursue those names, but she leaves out tons of evidence and tons of other names because that would disrupt the possibility of this pardon. I think that is very possible, and hopefully, maybe eventually, we can actually get some justice here. Hopefully, there will be a pursuit here of these criminals eventually. Maybe it comes from Ghislaine Maxwell giving those names up. Maybe not. I have no clue. But once again, to tie it all back to the beginning, why not just release the fucking files? Just release the files and also get names from Ghislaine Maxwell. Have her testify publicly the right way. Have her give all of this information and this evidence over so the public can know that there was no fishy business going on behind closed doors. Why wouldn't you want that transparency? That's been the number one buzzword for this administration is transparency, yet every step of the way with Jeffrey Epstein, it has been nothing but hidden agendas and under the table dealings and shit. It's just, it's absolute insanity. So yeah, anyway, I just wanted to give you the update here to this. It's unbelievable. That's really about it. So yeah.